My name is Coach Miguel, and I'm a coach with UFA, United Soccer Academy. This is our local academy, which has been in place for about 4 years, and we've seen a lot of growth in these past 4 years, so that's very exciting. But today, what we're going to talk about is strength and conditioning, specifically strength and conditioning for a soccer striker. So, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about programming for the off season, pre-season, in-season, and competitive season. We're going to break down how each phase of the season will have its specific training elements and how each of those is going to transfer into sports performance. So to me, strength and conditioning simply means that someone is just looking to get faster and stronger. It could be a recreational athlete just looking to improve their game, or it could be an Olympic athlete that is trying to go for the gold. But the goal is the same. Everyone is trying to get faster and stronger and better at their sport. So now that we know what strength and conditioning is, the next thing is to know how to do it. So what we need to do is we need to train each fitness element, including strength, flexibility, speed, agility, endurance, and mental toughness. And the way that we're going to build up on these training qualities is going to be with weightlifting, stretching, agility drills, interval training, and plyometrics. So now let's talk about the beginning of the season. For most athletes, the beginning of the season is on the preseason. However, for more serious athletes, we want to begin programming before that during the off season. And the purpose of this time is for the athlete to identify areas of improvement and work on them. And this is mostly via skills training. At this stage in the season, we don't want to emphasize high speed training or high intensity training. We mostly want to just focus on skill development, really trying to identify those areas of weakness, whether they be mental or technical or even emotional, that can be improved upon to be able to reach the next level. Now we can begin looking at some of the programming. We're going to have two types of days during the off season. We're going to have our gym days and we're going to have our field days. So for gym days, we're going to do 8 to 10 different exercises for 3 different sets for 8 to 12 reps. The reason for this is because at this point in the season, we just want to build a general fitness. We want to get the body ready for the stressors that are coming up in the preseason, and we want to help them to rebuild the strength that they may have lost during the off season, and also get them into the habit of getting into the gym, getting their routine done, and get them prepared mentally and physically for the upcoming intensities. So we want to have longer contact time, plyometric movements, and conditioning via skills training. So this is a good area where the athlete can begin working on their endurance, and doing this by working on specific skill movements that they either need to work on or want to work on, or again just identifying those areas of improvement that they can work on at this time with some level of intensity to begin to build their endurance. Building that strength, endurance, and skill that we need for the upcoming season. So now let's take a look at the bench press. This is going to be one of the first movements that we can perform as a good general upper body exercise. We want to make sure that we have good form throughout the exercise. We want to make sure that our feet are flat on the ground, that our blades are flat on the bench, that we are centered on the bench, that we have a good grip. We want to make sure that we have a symmetrical grip, and that we are performing this at a steady pace. So now let's look at the lat pull down. This is another great exercise for upper body strength. This is for back muscle strength. For this exercise, you want to make sure that you have a solid balanced grip. When you sit down, make sure that your back is straight, your shoulder blades are retracted, and you pull directly down into your chest at a steady pace. So another exercise that we'll be using during the off season is going to be the squat. So we're going to look at the form, and the main thing here is that we want to stay upright. We want to make sure that we hinge at the hips and then begin to bend our knees, ideally simultaneously, but emphasize that the hips are thrown back while your knees and thighs begin to bend. And as you come down, make sure that your hips are approximately at 90 degrees with your knees and your shins. And from there, you want to begin to press up. Okay, so one exercise that we can use to build speed and power is going to be the power clean. This is an exercise where the bar is at the floor and we're going to catch it in one single movement in a clean position. As you can see, I have not done this exercise very much recently, so my form is not the best. But really what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to lift the bar off the ground, extend your hips, triple extend your ankles, knees, and hips, and catch it in a front squat position with the knees above 90 degrees. And this is how it is defined as a power clean. Now we can talk about the field days. So on these days, what we want to focus on is more endurance, agility, and speed. Next, to build some agility, we're going to do some agility patterns. So I didn't have an agility ladder, but I used a line as a reference, and that was just good enough to be able to move my feet in and out of the line, to be able to get those patterns down, to get that neuromuscular connection, to be able to perform these quick movements that will help us to build more agility. So another exercise that we can incorporate for speed and power is going to be the broad jump. This is a good exercise because it has a long contact time on the ground, and it is a full body movement where you have to exert all your force to be able to jump forward, tuck your knees in, put your feet out in front of you, and land in a stable position. The next movement is the shuttle run. This is simply running back and forth between the line. In the exercise that I performed, I simply followed the line. I didn't use any cones or anything. But the point is to accelerate and decelerate as soon as possible and make it run as quick as possible. The next movements are the skiers, and these are one of my personal favorites. What I really like about this is that it's really good for force production, balance, and strength. The way that these are performed is going to be by balancing on one leg and jumping over to the side and catching yourself on the other leg, one leg at a time, and then switching back and forth. And every time that you switch, you want to make sure that you have control of your body. You want to hold it for a second or two and then jump off to try to stabilize yourself with just one leg. Okay, so now that we covered the basics about the off season, let's talk about the preseason. So in here, we're gonna pick up the intensity a little bit because we want the athlete to be in peak condition. Well, not peak condition yet, but getting close to peak condition by the beginning of the season. At the beginning of the season, they're not likely to have very competitive games, maybe some friendlies or some practice matches or something like that. But we still want to pick up the intensity. And to do this, we're not really going to increase the sets. We may increase the sets by one or two if necessary, but mostly we're going to decrease the reps, or meaning we're going to increase the weight that they're performing. And we're going to look at some exercises that will help them to develop the training qualities that we're looking for, which is going to be more speed, more strength, more explosiveness at this point during the preseason, as well as more skill development. So just like the off season, we're going to have our gym days and we're going to have our field or court days. And on our field days, we're going to focus mostly on speed and power, while on our gym days, we're going to focus mostly on overall strength. We also want to make sure that while we're doing our field exercises that we're incorporating skill movements. So this would mean some soccer drills, some shots, or some juggling to to replace interval training. We want to incorporate as much play as possible. So now we're going to look at what our gym days are going to look like. So like we talked about, this is going to be mostly overall strength. So for this, we're going to be doing again compound movements, but now we're going to increase the weight. So for something like this, an incline bench press is very good because it's more challenging than a normal press, than a normal bench press. And so that's a good way to increase the intensity. With this exercise, we want to set ourselves up just like we did before for the bench. We want to have our shoulder blades flat on the bench with our with our arms extended and the bar coming down and touching the middle to lower section of our chest and pressing straight up. Another exercise that can be done on this day would be dips. This is also a good upper body exercise where you work different areas of your chest and also you work your shoulders, your biceps and triceps and stability. So this is a good exercise to build other muscles that otherwise may not be worked in normal conditions, and it's also a good way to overload the athlete. So next, let's talk field days. So while we still want to incorporate some plyometrics, we still want to make sure that there's no low contact time exercises. We still want to mostly focus on force production. The same as before, we're going to keep the sets as the same, and we're going to be increasing the weight on the reps. One good exercise that we can do for this is weighted squat jumps. So what we can do is grab a medicine ball or even a weight, but ideally a medicine ball, and just do squats, jump squats. And these are going to be a really good dynamic exercise that is going to help to train the stretch shortening cycle while not exerting it and still focusing on force development. Another exercise that we can implement on these field days is going to be the box jump. This is another great exercise that focuses on force exertion and does not have a low contact time. This is a good movement that can be performed easily, and we want to do this by having the athlete get in their athletic stance and jump together with both of their feet and land and pause at the top for 1 second. Now that we have entered the season, it's going to be time to focus on maintaining and maybe progressing the gains that have been made during the off and preseason. We have established that each training day is going to have their specific training element, meaning that they're going to produce, for example, the gym days are going to produce more force, and now that we are in the in season and into the competitive season, we're going to produce more power by increasing the weight. But also during the court and field days, we're going to also work on maintaining the speed and power that has been gained so far. Another difference now that we have entered the competitive seasons is that we need to decrease the volume. Now that the players are going to be in active practice, we don't need to do as much volume anymore because they're already going to be training with their team with skill specific components, which is the most important of all, which should never overtake weight training or speed training. They want to focus on skills training, which is what they will be doing now that they're in the season. This means that for our purposes, we're only going to decrease the volume and focus on still maintaining a high level of intensity. What this means for our gym days is that we're going to decrease the number of reps that we perform while we increase the weight, but also maintain the sets about the same or more if needed, But we want to be careful with that because we want to make sure that we don't overtrain the athlete since they are in the middle of the season. Some more exercises that can be performed are the horizontal pull, where the athlete sits upright, reaches out, and pulls directly with their elbows to their chest, and repeat that with heavy weight at this point. Another exercise would be the kettlebell swings, where the athlete wants to focus on thrusting with the hips while maintaining an upright position, hinging at the hips, and thrusting to engage the glutes and the hip muscles. One would be the decline bench press. This is another variation of the bench press where it forces the athlete to have to adapt and the body to produce that adaptation that we're looking for. Again, these are all going to be with heavier weights and lower repetitions. One more exercise is an isometric, the plank. This is one that I don't often see prescribed, but I believe is a good exercise to have for core strength beyond just squats and deadlifts, which are great, but this is also a good component, especially since it can be in a variation with side squats. And finally, what we need to address is the final field and court days plyometrics to help maintain the speed and intensity that they need to peak at the end of the season. And for this, they're going to be doing exercises such as like the split squat, which has very low contact time. The split squat, they have to jump, land on a lunge position, and then jump and land and alternate to a different lunge position. But we'll also want to incorporate more agility exercises at this point as well. Another great exercise to incorporate will be the single leg box jump. This is another very low contact time, which is good for engaging the nervous system and to allow the player to practice being explosive and being quick. These are no longer being weighted. These are all body weight exercises at this point to help the athlete explode with their own weight. With this, after we have completed the entire program from the off season to the competitive season, it concludes the entire year. After this, the player would go on to their off season to have some time off, at which time they will most likely decondition and will need to recondition again during the beginning of the next year's off season. So this concludes the video. I thank you for your time and have a good day.